Transmitter device activated. Coordinates set for Earth 2.
Hey everyone, welcome to the Earth 2 podcast, your weekly exploration of the DC Comics multiverse and the legacy of their Golden Age characters through the Silver and the Bronze Ages of comics. I'm Peter Watson.
I'm Logan McFarlane.
And I'm David Steele. Welcome back. Thank you for joining us. Delighted this week because we're reading from another issue of SHAZAM! Yes, we're doing a story, the lead story, the cover story, if you like, from issue 19, published on the 24th of April 1975. And Peter is going to tell us all about the cover.
At the top, the line of DC superstars, SHAZAM, Saturday's newest TV star.
Yeah, because the live action show had started by this point and was well established by now.
Indeed. 25 cents, number 19, cover dated August. Approved by the Comics Code Authority. With one magic word, SHAZAM, the world's mightiest mortal. Now, that has never been truer, because the word SHAZAM is being shouted out by Billy Batson to turn into Captain Marvel. However, there is a second figure who is wearing kind of like the reverse of Billy Batson's clothes. And he seems to have pointed ears as well. He's got a yellow jumper with red highlights as opposed to Billy's jumper, which is red with yellow highlights. And Billy says, "It's time for the world's mightiest mortal, SHAZAM!" And the second figure says,
"It's time for the world's mightiest villain!"
And we see that as well as Billy transforming into the familiar figure of Captain Marvel, this other character has transformed into like a reverse version of him.
Yeah.
With a yellow costume with red highlights, very similar to the Reverse Flash.
Yeah, and it's cool to see that the Shazam lightning bolt sort of behind, slightly obscured by the dialogue bubble, sort of splits in two and strikes them both. And this new guy has a cape which has black with red lining instead of white with yellow lining. Very effective. I like the fact there's a little Captain Marvel figure in the corner box with the word Shazam written beside him, because at this point they're not able to actually call him Captain Marvel on the cover anymore.
No, it's not.
It's fascinating looking at all this sort of stuff. Around this time there's an issue, I think, of 4-star Super Spectacular or something, or Super DC Giant. It doesn't even say Shazam on the cover, it just refers to the world's mightiest mortal. Okay. All these euphemisms. And there's one with the whole group and it says the world's mightiest family, because Marvel were obviously using Marvel at this point. But we've talked endlessly about the legalities of such things in our previous episodes on Captain Marvel. We would refer you to our early episode on the MF Enterprises Captain Marvel and our earlier episode when we did issue 1 of SHAZAM. But it's nice to see a corner box figure. I wonder if we'll get any other corner box figures or anything like that on other comics soon. Let's all keep our eyes open for that. So we begin. A nice little establishing what's the origin of Captain Marvel type box, which shows a drawing of Billy and a drawing of the Wizard with his name all spelt out and a caption that reads,
"All the powers of 6 great gods and heroes have been gathered in place in the hands of boy broadcaster Billy Batson when he speaks the name of the ancient Egyptian wizard SHAZAM. He becomes, in a blinding flash of lightning, the world's mightiest mortal, Captain Marvel."
And our story is set with Captain Marvel narrating. He's standing beside a panel which is showing Billy Batson pointing at a little kid who's roughly about the same age as Billy. He's dressed in green and blue, wearing a weird, I want to say World War I style German helmet, when it's a sort of gold brass helmet with a point on top. Would you say that's fair?
Yeah, definitely. It's Max and Rich from the Weird Warriors podcast would probably be able to tell us.
Yes.
But yes, it has got similarities to the German dress uniform, I think, perhaps, because they got rid of it because it pointed out up over the trenches and made them easier targets.
I'm sure Max and Rich have said many times about stories published after they made that decision, but stories still, covers and stories still kept depicting them.
Check out the Weird Warriors podcast for more than that.
Yes, please do check out the Weird Warriors podcast with Extreme Prejudice, not least because they've helped us out many times as recently as a few weeks ago on the Seven Soldiers. But anyway, right, so Billy's pointing at this little boy in green and he's saying,
"Zazo, you're a menace and you've got to be stopped. SHAZAM!"
There's a massive karapow as the Shazam lightning bolt strikes down, but instead of Billy transforming into Captain Marvel, Zazo has transformed into an adult figure who's, as Pete described on the cover, whose uniform is the reverse of Captain Marvel. What is red is yellow and the cape is black and red instead of white and yellow. And Billy is astonished to see this and he says,
"Holy moly, the lightning bolt never touched me, but it turned you into
Zazo Plus, bigger and badder than ever." And this is all being observed by a large image of Captain Marvel who's standing sort of stage right of it all in a way. And he gives us context for it all when he says,
"I never realised before how dangerous my magic word could be. Watch what happens when someone learns how to harness all that mystic energy, and I have to find out who stole Billy Batson's thunder.
And we get the credits for this fun story.
Story by Elliot S. Magan, art by Kurt Schaeffenberger, editing by Julius Schwartz.
Fantastic. Kurt Schaeffenberger in the house. So we begin. Top of page 2, a caption.
On a clear sunny day in the city, there is trouble. The signal for boy newscaster Billy Batson to say, "Shazam!"
Which Billy does in close-up.
And with a clap of magic thunder, the lad is transformed into the world's mightiest mortal, whose entrance is a jab of white heat in the stomach of evildoers like these.
We see Cap sprinting towards a large blue car. We can see the smashed window of a jewellery shop in the background and three bad guys making their exit. There's one chap with red hair and a vicious red beard. There's another guy in a purple suit with a white hat. And there's a much thicker set, heavy-built, blonde fellow. Cap sprints towards them, identifying the chap I described last by saying,
"Beef jerky! You and your men have robbed your last jewellery store."
The guy in the purple suit observes,
"Cheese it, boss. It's Captain Marvel."
Beef Jerky and his pals climb into the big blue car and drive off. And Beef Jerky says, "Stopping him will be a piece of cake once he gets a blast from this hotshot heater I found." And we see that he's holding a weird pink gun. Weird sort of large, wide nozzle at the front. He fires it back at Captain Marvel. There's a weird bzzz sound effect. Cap flies after him, stretches both the palms of his hands out to try and deflect the beam from this weird car, and he thinks,
"Holy moly, the energy from that gun is mighty strong, but not strong enough. Where could a petty crook like Jerky have gotten it?"
The driver of Jerky's car observes,
"Look at boss, Marvel's ploughing right through it."
"I can see that, goofball. Drive out of here, fast." What we see then in the final panel of page 2 is that everything that's going on is being observed on a weird video screen, and a control is being adjusted by someone with very odd-looking, spotted, gnarled pink skin. And this invisible observer can see that Captain Marvel is running up beside Beef Jerky's car, and as he watches, this person is thinking, "Great gloof. Now Captain Marvel's stopping up the polybedenim gun with his finger, holding in the heat." And we see indeed that Billy / Cap has shoved his finger into the nozzle of the gun. Beef Jerky looks panicked. The caption for the first panel on page 3.
"Who is the mysterious figure secretly observing the world's mightiest mortal in action? Watch."
We get a better look of Captain Marvel's finger shoved into the nozzle of the gun as Beef Jerky lets go of it, saying, "Yow! The gun's white hot. Pick up speed before this red-suited crumb does the same to the car." We see Cap jumping over the car because there's a gentleman working some equipment involving some large wooden cylinders, and Cap says to him,
"Would you mind if I borrowed a couple of your old lampposts for a moment?"
"My pleasure, Captain Marvel, but what use you can make of them is beyond me." And then we see the next panel, point of view inside the car, Jerky and his pals as they zoom along the road towards Cap, who's holding two of the old lampposts up in front of him. Beef Jerky says, "What's Marvel up to now?" The driver says,
"We're moving too fast. We'll go right up into the air."
And that's what they do, as if the lampposts were tracks. Fascinatingly, Schaeffenberger's rendered panel 4 as if it were watching it on a view screen herself, and we hear the thoughts of our off-screen observer thinking, "Great gloof, I can hardly wait to get into this game myself. I hope my plan works." And we can see a rear view of our observer, and it's the guy from the splash panel, dressed in green, slicked back, black hair, pink skin, pointy Sinestro-style ears, and he's watching on the screen as Beef Jerky's car is borne through the air by Captain Marvel. From inside we hear Jerky saying, Did we crash yet?"
"Look, Beef, we ain't gonna crash. We're flying onto the roof of the police station."
Yep, we see Cap descending, bearing the car onto the roof of the police building, and Cap says,
"Marvel Air Shuttle at your service."
Awesome. Our observer. We're back with him in the first panel of page 4, looking over his shoulder, and we see the weird detailing in his skin. He's kind of creepy. He sees on the screen that Cap is alighting in front of the police station, and this pink-skinned, pointy-eared lad is thinking, "He should be saying it right about now." And on the screen, Cap can be heard saying,
"I guess that job's over, so Shazam!" And from his far-off secret hideaway, even our mysterious observer is rocked by a bolt of
"Magic thunder and lightning," he thinks to himself. What a thrill! And we see him and his chair vibrating. In fact, his whole bit of equipment is vibrating as the massive boom of the lightning bolt takes place. We cut back to the real world, Billy marching along.
But the change is so swift and sudden that no one else realizes that Captain Marvel has changed back to Billy Batson.
Billy looks at his watch.
"Holy moly, I'd better hurry back to Station Whiz before I'm late."
And then we cut back again to the den of our weird pink-skinned observer. We get a proper look at him here. He's a weird button nose and very white teeth. And he's thinking to himself, Lady's right. I've done enough watching. It's time Zazo stole Billy Batson's thunder. And with that, he puts on the helmet that we described, and it does look like a vintage World War I German-style helmet, but gold with a sort of blue band along the front. He puts it on, and interestingly, because it's Schaeffenberger, the point extends up into the previous panel. Fascinating.
At that moment, inside the police station...
Yep, call Thin Lizzy, because there's a jailbreak. A cop is pointing and saying,
For the love of Mike, the cell wall is melting down, and there's a helicopter waiting outside for beef jerky to escape in.
Indeed, we see that the cell wall has melted into a big gloop on the floor. There's an orange helicopter outside, purple suit goon's already in it, the driver goon is running towards it, and bringing up the rear, beef jerky himself slowly stepping over the gloop and following his colleagues, and he's saying at this point, I ain't asking how this is happening, I'm just going. Police sirens wail as Billy Batson makes his way along the pavement. Cars speeding past him. Billy whirls to look at them and says,
Another emergency so soon? Time again to say, SHAZAM! And somewhere, very far off, Billy hears the faintest crack of thunder, but...
Nothing has happened. Billy's still the same. He thinks to himself,
Holy moly, I'm not Captain Marvel. The magic lightning never struck.
And we see Billy having that thought on Zazo's screen, and we also see that the thunderbolt seems to have been diverted into Zazo's room because there's a massive burst of golden energy as if someone else has been struck by the lightning. Billy on the screen can be seen saying out loud,
I wonder where it went.
And then we see that Zazo himself has transformed into a full, tall, adult figure, similar features and similar detailing in his skin, but he's now wearing, instead of his green outfit, the reverse image of Captain Marvel's uniform. Yellow leggings, yellow tunic, but with red lightning, red gauntlets, red boots, and a black cape with the red fleur-de-lis and red lining instead of white with yellow. Zazo is still wearing his helmet, and he stands and says, Great gloof! My super-duper lightning rod helmet attracted Billy's Captain Marvel powers for myself. My costume's like Captain Marvel's, only the colours are reversed. Guess that's because they're different in my world. I'm not just plain Zazo anymore. Planet Earth, get ready to meet Zazo Plus. And with that, he stands in front of what to me looks like a weird kind of Phantom Zone projector style bit of equipment. A green bit of metallic gear with a yellow ball on a little pointy bit, which is radiating a blue wave, which is washing all over Zazo and making him go translucent and fade out. We cut back to Earth as Billy looks at what's going on around him and says,
Holy moly! Beef and his men are escaping in that helicopter, and I can't change to Captain Marvel. Unless last time's a freak accident, or something's happened to old SHAZAM.
And as Billy says the word,
and this time the magic word works.
Yes, a massive pow! As the thunderbolt strikes, in the first panel of page 6, the world's mightiest Marvel, Captain Marvel, flies up into the air thinking, Strange, wonder what happened to the bolt before. No matter. I've got a bunch of crooks to catch. We see the three baddies in the helicopter. The driver of the car, the getaway car, is now the pilot of the helicopter.
Handy.
He's multi-skilled, obviously. Purple-suited goon is looking around with a big smile and he's saying,
The cops will never get us up here, Beef.
That's for sure. No one will. Uh-oh. And because he's looked out the window and he's spotted Cap. Cap, who's flown up, caught the helicopter and starts flying it around, making it loop and swirl, making everyone a bit dizzy. As he does so, he sings,
He flies through the air with the greatest of ease, the daring young man soaring over the trees.
That was written for Zachary Levi, it's clear. From inside the helicopter, one of the goons says,
Beef, I think I'm getting airsick.
And then at the next panel, as we see Cap flying along with the helicopter upside down, we hear Beef saying, Captain Marvel, stop! We'll give ourselves up!
Oh, just when I was having so much fun too.
Then off camera, a voice starts to say, Did somebody say fun? And we see Zazo revealed, sitting cross-legged, floating in midair, holding his helmet and surprising the heck out of a small bird who flies past, has a large question mark above its head. Cap replies,
Holy moly, where on earth did you come from?
Nowhere on Earth. I came from a world in another dimension to meet you, Marvy. And we see that Zazo is imagining his world that looks fairly futuristic and a bit Dalek City, if you ask me. He continues, I melted the jail wall so Beef Jerky could get out. And I also sent him the hotshot hero you took away from him. It's dull in my world. I came here to have fun.
What kind of fun did you have in mind?
Says Cap, still holding on to the helicopter. Oh, the usual kind. Tying Kens to puppies' tails, stomping on ant colonies, stealing other people's criminals, that sort of thing. And with that, Zazo whooshes up, grabs the helicopter from Captain Marvel's grasp and flies off with it. Cap says,
"Holy moly, he's as fast as I am."
"I'm exactly as fast as you are, Marvy. Great gloof, this is fun."
"Where are you taking those crooks?"
And then we see the three lads inside a helicopter looking very panicked and scared. Beef Jerky says, "Yeah, we know our rights. We have a right to know where we're going." Zazo replies, "Halfway around the planet and into the drink. Ha ha." And he laughs, and with that, he drops the helicopter so that it falls upside down towards the ocean.
"That's not right as far as I'm concerned,"
says Cap, who's caught up, and he flies in and grabs the chopper just before it hits the surface of the water. Bearing it up again, from inside we hear Jerky saying, "Thanks for saving us from that nut, Captain Marvel. Now put us back in jail where we'll be safe." Zazo gets a close-up as he thinks, "I think I'll remain here and have fun with Captain Marvel. And I'll never let anyone know I'm just a bratty kid who's run away from home."
After the world's mightiest mortal has managed to transport his captives back to the police station,
we see Cap looking astonished, wide-eyed, sweat bouncing from him as he says,
"Holy moly, Zazo Plus is turning the city upside down. A car on a lamppost. A clown building. And Mr. Dockles can't deliver the mail. He's, hung up."
Yeah, we see the poor postman hanging from a flagpole on the side of a building, and as Cap says, there's one car balanced on top of a lamppost, a clown's face painted on the side of a building, people sit in their cars watching, alarmed. Zazo takes all this in, sees Cap and yells, "Hi Marvy, how do you like the new penny arcade I'm building for your city?" We can see this, he's standing in front of a brick structure which he seems to be building one brick at a time. "A shame too, I'm told your zoning laws prohibit the building of penny arcades in busy streets," and we see that he's actually building it in the middle of the road. In the next panel, we see that Cap has rescued Mr. Dockles from the flagpole, and he's flying down in the direction of the car balanced on a lamppost to rescue the driver, and as he does this he's saying,
"Say, your costume is just like mine except for the colours. I've got to think this out. You must have got the magic lightning when Billy Batson said his word earlier."
"Sure," says Zazo. Tapping his brim, he says, "It was this helmet of mine. When I'm wearing it, your lightning strikes me." Cap thinks,
"And he's wearing it now, so if I say the word, he'll be changed back to his real self."
Cap then yells,
"Shazam!" On cue, the magic lightning comes at the mention of the magic word.
Yes, there's a massive boom as the cartoon Shazam lightning bolt strikes the ground. We're continued on the third page following. Past an advertisement for Topps baseball cards. That's very interesting. Superhero stick-ons, etc. We arrive at top of page 9 where there's a caption.
But Zazo Plus is yanked off his hat at the last instant, and
Cap has changed back to Billy. You can see Zazo's helmet on the ground as he leaps forward and grabs Billy, putting his hand over Billy's mouth as Billy obviously attempts to say the magic word again. Zazo says, "Gotcha! I figured Marvel would try to change me back by saying the word. That's why I told him about my helmet." Next panel, we see that Zazo is flying Billy into the Penny Arcade building, which he's just finished constructing, and he's saying, "But with the speed of Mercury, I could remove my hat, so the lightning changed him back to you instead. And this muffle mask will make the change permanent." And out of nowhere, he's produced a metal helmet, which he's slotted and clicked into place on Billy's head. It looks very like the mask that Legionnaire fellow has just been wearing in recent issues of the Justice Society of America series when they can be bothered to publish it. As the helmet fastens, Billy thinks to himself,
"I can't say a word, not even Shazam."
We get a shot of Zazo looking absolutely horrific, like a demented Robbie Williams as he says, "Now that you're unable to speak your magic word, I'll stay Zazo Plus, and you'll stay Billy Batson forever." With that, he flies off, leaving Billy wandering around outside the Penny Arcade. Zazo zooms off saying, "Have fun, kid. I know I sure will." Billy thinks,
"Holy moly, what'll I do now?"
And we suddenly cut to a friendly face who we've not seen for a while. We see Freddie Freeman standing next to his nice fancy new modern newsstand, if you know that story. And Freddie is saying,
"Paper! Get your newspaper!"
Billy can hear him. He recognises his voice. He thinks,
"Freddie Freeman, alias Captain Marvel Jr. I can't ask him for help, but..."
In the next panel, we see that Billy grabs at some of Freddie's stock, starts running off. Freddie sees this and thinks,
"Hey, it's a boy in an iron mask stealing my papers. I can't chase him, but I know who can."
With that, he cries,
"Captain Marvel!"
As crippled newsboy Freddie Freeman says the name of his hero, a magic lightning bolt crashes to Earth. But instead of changing Freddie Freeman to the world's mightiest boy...
Yep, the lightning bolt strikes Zazo Plus, who's transformed back to normal Zazo and who yells, "Great gloof! What made me change back to plain Zazo? We can see that his helmet has also been dislodged at this point. In the next panel, we're back with Freddy. There's obviously been some rain. It's an interesting detail there from Kurt Schaffenberger. We can see some water in the gutter. Freddy is saying,
Holy moly! Why didn't the magic words work that time?
and we see Billy dropping the newspapers and running off thinking,
They worked. Got to get to where Zazo was falling.
the next panel we see Zazo is falling but managed to stop himself by grabbing onto a flagpole. There's lots of flagpoles in Fawcett City at this point.
Mm-hmm.
Managed to grab the pole saying, I broke my fall, but I can't reach my helmet. And indeed we see the helmet falling past him. In the next panel we can see that Billy can see the helmet falling. He moves to catch it, thinking,
Got to get this helmet on my head before Freddy again says...
Captain Marvel!
great shot of Freddy standing at the newsstand and a caption reads,
Another clap of thunder reaches across the cosmos.
it's a massive BAM! As we see the lightning bolt connect.
Which this time brings not Captain Marvel Jr., but the world's mightiest mortal himself.
Yep, thank goodness for that. You can see Cap removing the helmet Billy was wearing. He's scrunching Zazo's pointed helmet in his left hand as he flies up to rescue Zazo from the flagpole. He grabs him by his... almost looks like he's giving him a wedgie in the next panel. Grabbing him by his breeks, he lifts him off the flagpole saying,
Zazo, you're a mischievous little kid, and you're going to get the punishment a mischievous little kid deserves. The spanking of your life.
fantastic. You can tell this is the 70s. Cap sits on the flagpole, puts Zazo across his knee, starts spanking his backside. Zazo exclaims, oh, ah, wow! And off camera, a voice suddenly proclaims,
Exactly the punishment I would prescribe, Earthman.
and in the next panel, floating into view on a little railed platform which seems to be powered, another gentleman with pink skin and weird clothes, with pointy ears but older, the white hair and a beard, pops into view and Zazo exclaims, Pop! I never thought you could trace me here.
I am called Zazo the Elder, and I will take my son back to my own world now, Captain Marvel.
Cap stops spanking Zazo at this point and says,
He's all yours.
and there's a slow dissolve.
Sometime later...
We see Freddy at his newsstand talking to Cap, and Freddy's saying,
So I didn't say the word again until you got here to help me. Nothing seems to happen anymore when I say Captain Marvel.
and then there's a massive crackle. And once again the lightning bolt is called down and Freddy is transformed to Captain Marvel Jr. He says,
It worked that time. How?
Calm down, Junior, and I'll tell you all about it.
and a small caption reads,
The end.
Well then,
Listeners, don't go spanking other people's children, and indeed,
Oh my-
don't go spanking your own children either.
yes, this has been a public service announcement because you'll be doing all sorts of damage. Yes, so Zazo is from another dimension, listeners,
Yay!
and that's why we did it.
And technically he's also a member of the Marvel family, because they shared a lightning bolt.
Yes, and he's another reverse type image of or something. Anyway, yes, so that was fun.
Yeah.
Always good to do a Shazam story.
Certainly was.
I love Kurt Schaffenberger's approach to illustration.
I was going to say exactly the same thing.
Jinx.
Yes, it's wonderful.
He's very individual.
Uh-huh.
There's been a real mix and range of artwork and stories that we've recorded today, actually.
Yeah, compare this with the Shadow story that we did with the Avenger. I mean, they're both wonderfully told stories. However, this is just...
Imagine the artists had swapped.
it wouldn't work. Would
Can
not
you
have
imagine
worked.
Schaffenberger having drawn the Shadow and
no.
then Cruz drawing this one? It would have been
I
amazing.
can imagine doing a pin-up with the Shadow and it would look epic. But as far as the storytelling in that story, no. Cruz in this one, though, I could see it, but it just looked far too sinister.
Yeah, it would, wouldn't it? I can imagine Freddy looking uber dynamic. I mean, I'm a big fan of Schaffenberger. Much has been said about the cartoony sort of style of the Shazam stories in the 70s. Now, people often wanted them to be a bit more up-to-date and realistic.
Yeah.
By the time they get to World's Finest, I think the balance is pretty good. But that's a couple of years away at this point. No, it was a lot of fun. Nice little sidestep. Yeah, I don't really have too much more to say about it. I enjoyed the overweight, stereotypical, heavy bad guy. And it's just fun to do another Shazam story. All those lightning bolts left, right and centre. The wizard must have been sitting on the Rock of Eternity going, what the heck's going on?
Yep, pretty much. This actually reminded me quite a bit, and it's probably just the Schaffenberger art, but quite a bit of the New Adventures of Superboy series. Zazo felt very much like a character that could have fit in there.
That's fair.
But yeah, because Schaffenberger did a lot of that.
Yeah, that's reasonable.
Yeah, I just thought I'd mention that.
No, that's cool. No, I get it. Yeah, that's a great series. We'll be doing stories from a couple of issues of that, listeners.
Yes.
See if you can work out which ones by jumping ahead and taking a look. I can think of at least 2 or 3 that we're doing.
Yes.
Anyway.
Your Junior Sinestro comparison is quite apt. He does look quite like him, in some panels especially. Yeah.
Any excuse to do a Shazam story in them there, really, to be honest.
Of course.
I don't think we would have suffered too much if we hadn't done it, but it's nice just to kind of drop in and and sort of check in with him. A couple more Shazam stories in the 20s and 30s of that book that we'll be doing, and then a few of the World's Finest stories in the future. And of course, they're doing a JLA JSA crossover in a few months as well, as the crow flies.
Yep.
I like the artwork. I'm glad that Freddie rocked up because I love Freddie. It was nice to see him have something to do and contribute slightly. Thank you to Logan for lending your voice to Freddie once again.
Indeed, yes.
I don't really have too much to say. It was a nice little knockabout, fun run-around story.
Yeah, absolutely. Again, just great entertainment. That's fine.
Does the job.
Shall we jump ahead to issue 21's Shazam Mail?
I think that's an excellent idea.
Great. The first letter says, Dear Julie, I went out to get the mail today after looking over my back issues of Shazam and wondering when the next issue would come out. Well, I opened the mailbox and found a magazine wrapped in brown paper. I noticed smoke on part of the cover that was sticking out and thought, great, it must be Shazam. When the wrapper was pulled off, I was stunned. Seeing Shazam, it's time for the world's mightiest villain, and that bright, beautiful costume. The first thing that popped into my head was Professor Zoom, the Reverse Flash. Why? Well, it's obvious. The reversed costume and colour scheme. Mr. Elliot Magan, you have done the best story of your life in Shazam 19, Who Stole Billy Batson's Thunder. It would have been nice to see Billy a little more, but that might have upset the story. Great gloof! A spanking! Ridiculous. But that's what Shazam is all about, as many people have said. And that's from Mickey McConnell, Richmond, Virginia.
Richmond, Virginia is where our very good friend Mr. Thomas Ross Aitken lives.
There we are.
Ross, do you know Mickey McConnell? Can you track him down or find any members of his family? Challenge extended. That's great. It's a shame we didn't get his full address and Ross would have sent Ross on a mission. Editorial response reads, most readers seem to have liked the lead story in number 19, though some did have reservations. There will now be a 1-minute pause for Indian jokes? Is that to do with...
Oh, reservations, yeah.
Oh, right. Okay, I'm glad you explained that to me. I didn't get that.
Yes.
Anyway, that's from Ian B. The next letter reads, Dear Edward. Is that what the E in E. Nelson Bridwell stands for? Stands for Edward?
Don't know.
Patrick Troughton's middle name was George. There you go. Dear Edward. Some writers have their off days, or weeks or months, or whatever it takes to produce a story. Elliot Magan has his on days, however. Who Stole Billy Batson's Thunder was one such occasion, and probably the best thing he has done since Make Way for Captain Thunder.
Gasp.
Oh, it's from Soups 276. I mean, we didn't talk too much about it. It's a great idea, isn't it? Someone stealing his power.
Oh, yeah.
There's a lot of potential there. It's a good thing that Zazo was just a kid who didn't have a huge amount of evil sort of, he just built a penny arcade and stuck someone's car on a lamppost. He didn't go like super bad crazy and start murdering lots of people.
Imagine someone like Savannah got hold of his power. Imagine if that could happen.
Exactly.
Hints.
Our correspondent continues, I enjoyed the story partially because it's based on some of my favourite themes, although not one I care to see used too often, a variation in either the magic lightning, the words, or the recipient. Though hardly a classic, it's still far superior to the usual Magan farce, even though the villain did tend to remind me a little too much of Mr.
McShespitalik.
Yes. See, I thought it would have been better for you to read that letter, because you can pronounce that better than me. Anyway, not that the story was without its defects. One was the way Captain Marvel stops the crooks. In the Golden Age he did it in rather a simple, direct fashion, not in the flamboyant style Magan ascribes to him. Using a lamppost does not fit Cap's style. Another defect was the characterisation, particularly when Zazo referred to himself as just a bratty kid. How many bratty kids recognise themselves as such?
Fair point.
Elliot should have used a caption, or let it go until Zazo's father appeared. And I'm glad to see that somebody still believes in corporal punishment too.
Oh dear.
Any of its time.
Oh dear.
One other fault lay in Zazo's extra-dimensional origin. From the devices he used, one must conclude he had enough to give CM a rough time, even without stealing the Shazam powers. Oh well, I did enjoy the story, and Schaffenberger's art did much to enhance it. There's a paragraph on the backup story with Mary and Uncle Marvel, and then this correspondent concludes saying, by the way, I like the way Elliot worked Freddy and Junior into the lead story in an effective, non-contrived fashion, and that's from John Pierce, Columbus, Ohio.
Editorial response says, back in the Golden Age, Cap was not averse to an occasional burst of flamboyance, like the time Savannah was on a train and CM built a track for it that led right into the prison yard.
Amazing.
That's fantastic. The final letter says, Dear Editor, the great Zazo Plus is in keeping with the Captain Marvel tradition. Flavour-wise, I should say. Actually, Zazo is a mixture of McShespitalik, the Reverse Flash, and Black Adam. Very true, actually. His pranks are pure McShespitalik, as well as his origin and personality. His costumes and its colours, Reverse Flash. His powers, Black Adam. Here we have that ultimate corny, lovable, repeated Captain Marvel cliché. Billy unable to say his magic words. How many times has Billy Batson said Shaz, ugh, as a gag was slipped over his mouth? Wonderful. And this time it was done 10 times better. And that's from Adam Castro, New Rochelle, New York.
And that's it. So yeah, that was a fun little diversion. Wasn't bad. Fair points about comparing it with Black Adam.
Yeah.
Black Adam will appear in the podcast before too long, if we can get Dwayne Johnson to sit still long enough to record his dialogue.
And let it be said that John Pierce's comments about corporal punishment don't reflect the opinions of the hosts of this show.
Certainly not.
So, sorry, John.
Yeah, it's a really interesting idea. Another dimensional villain stealing Captain Marvel's power. There is a lot to be done with that. And I think this interesting they just chose to do this knockabout sort of fun thing, because the comic is a knockabout sort of fun thing at this point. There's potential there for a real deep drama, sort of like with real threat, and all three of the kids maybe having to team up, maybe losing their powers in turn, and having to get help from. I don't know.
Be a complete runaround. If it would be fantastic. Yeah.
There's potential for some real drama there. So we'll have to see if anyone else does anything similar at any point in the future.
Zazzle Plus could come back in the current series of Shazam. I think it'd fit in quite well. Actually.
That's an excellent idea.
If you can bring back SHAZAM, then why can't they bring back Zazzle Plus?
That's a fair point. I cannot disagree. No, there's potential is the word there. I think potential for the character and the idea, and I don't think the story went anywhere near hard enough or wide enough with what they could have done with that. So
it was 11 pages. That's
interesting.
All they did. Yes.
I know, and it's one of these things that makes you sort of slightly lament the tone and what they did with this comic at this point, because they could have been doing, I'm not saying it 100% more seriously or anything like that, but they could have done a lot more.
Fleshing out.
6 out of 10 Elliot Magan for me. 8 out of 10 for Kurt Schaffenberger.
What does it rate for you, folks? Why don't you write to us and let us know? You can email us at theearth2podcast@gmail.com. Make sure you follow us on social media, because we're putting up some lovely bonus material for this and indeed every episode. On Facebook and Instagram, we're at the Earth2 Podcast, and at Twitter, because we're still calling it that, we're at podcast_Earth2, and it is the number 2 for all our socials.
We mentioned our pal Ross during that, and again, I'll send you in the direction of Stop Let's Team Up and Opal City Confidential. As I always say at this point, if you're feeling generous, please go to wherever it is you receive your podcast and say some nice things about us, or go to our coffee page, buy Peter the price of beverage. All things would be appreciated, or just, as I always say now as well, spread the word, tell your pals. Right, we have recorded 3 episodes today, so I think we're going to have a couple of weeks off.
Indeed, on that Thunderbolt. I've been Peter.
And I've been David. We'll see you soon on
the Earth2 Podcast.
Transmatter Cube activated. Return coordinates set for Earth Prime.
The next panel, they're in the car roaring off, but Beef Jerky's a weird gun in his hand. Weird pants? What? A weird fancy looking pink. Yep, we see Cap descending, bearing the car onto the roof of the police building, and Cap says,
Marvel Air Shuttle.
One word at a time.
Marvel Air Shuttle at your service.
Awesome.